This is the first wireless mmWave sensor that we've seen, or at least that I've seen. No power cord, no USB cables, fully battery powered, which means you can put it anywhere. We've been waiting for something like this, right? Well, not so fast. It's got the speed, has the tech, even Matter support, but there's one big catch you're gonna wanna know before you go out and buy one of these for your smart home. Let's go. Yo, what's up guys? My name is Shane and this channel is all about building an easy Apple home, smart home with new videos and live streams published every week. All right, today we've got something pretty exciting. The first wireless mmWave sensor on the market, at least that I'm aware of. Now, if you've been following the smart home scene very much, you'll know how much of a game changer mmWave tech can be for your motion automations. It's fast, it's accurate, and for the most part, it can really take the frustration out of your motion-based automations. But here's the thing, all other mmWave sensors up to this point are wired, which really limits where you can place them for those automations. So when I heard that Third Reality recently released this new wireless mmWave sensor they call the Motion Sensor R1, I had to try it out. But as exciting as I was and as excited as you might be, there are some things you should know before purchasing one. So today's video, I'm gonna break down what's great about it and where it kind of falls flat and try to determine if this would be a good addition to your smart home. Now, full disclosure, Third Reality did send me this motion sensor for free, but this video is not sponsored. Regardless, you'll get my honest thoughts and opinions here as always. Now, Third Reality makes a number of really cool products, most of which are Zigbee-based products, meaning you will need some sort of Zigbee hub to integrate them into your smart home. They have also started releasing Matter over Wi-Fi and even Matter over Thread devices recently, which is nice. The Motion Sensor R1 is a Zigbee product. That means you will need a Zigbee hub. You can use the Third Reality Matter Smart Bridge to get this and other Zigbee products into Apple Home via Matter, or if you have something like Home Assistant with the Zigbee stick or Homey Pro, any of those things will work also. In the box, you get the sensor, the user manual, and 3 AA batteries are included. No wires, hallelujah. Third Reality claims that the batteries on this should last 3 years under typical use. That's pretty awesome. If that claim holds true, we'll discuss my experience with the battery life in just a minute. I have been using one of these for over 3 months now at this point. The hardware design is nothing really to write home about. It's a little bit bulky. Motion is detected through the front surface. There are 2 buttons on top that allow you to adjust the sensitivity very easily. The detection range can be adjusted from 1.5 to 9.5 meters using these buttons, which is really nice. No need to open an app or anything like that to fine-tune the sensitivity to get your automations working just right. The buttons can also be used to reset the device and put it into pairing mode or to turn off the LED. When you adjust the sensitivity using those buttons, the LED will indicate the level of sensitivity on the front, but the LED will also light up when motion is detected unless you turn that off. To pair it to your Zigbee hub, just put it into pairing mode by holding down the reset button. Again, you can use the Third Reality Matter Bridge, or you can add it directly to Home Assistant, Homey Pro, or any other Zigbee hub or Zigbee dongle like that. Now, this sensor isn't natively compatible with Apple Home on its own. Again, you will need that Third Reality Matter Smart Bridge to get this into HomeKit via Matter. But once it's in there, it will show up just like any other motion sensor and you can use it with your automations. For Home Assistant users, if you've got a Zigbee stick set up, or something like that, you're good to go. I'm using mine. I have a Home Assistant Yellow and it'll pair up just like any other Zigbee device. In Home Assistant, you get the motion sensor itself. You can see the battery level and the detection interval, which you can adjust here. This is the cooldown time, so the higher you set this, the longer it will take for the sensor to clear and say no motion was triggered. If you're using the motion sensor with the Third Reality Smart Bridge, you can actually adjust the cooldown time in the Third Reality app. And if you're using Homey Pro, same thing, just pair it over Zigbee and you can start using it in your flows and automations right there, right away. Good news is that the sensor is flexible. It uses the standard Zigbee 3.0 protocol. So as long as you have a Zigbee hub that supports this, you should be good to go. All right, now let's talk about the performance. This uses 5.8 gigahertz millimeter wave technology to detect motion rather than something like passive infrared or PIR that's used in most motion sensors. Millimeter wave is what we typically see being used in presence sensors, sensors like the Aqara FP2 or the FP1E. These millimeter wave sensors are usually really good at recognizing when someone is present, but being very still, like sitting at a desk or on a couch or something like that, hence why they're often called presence sensors. And that is where this millimeter wave sensor falls short. So I use the third reality sensor in my kitchen. I've been wanting, for a while to create an automation that turns on the cabinet lights really bright to 100% when someone gets close to the cabinets and then dims back down really low when no one is there. I actually used 2 of these sensors for this automation. I put one on either side of the counter so that I could get a really accurate automation here, and it worked great, well, until you're being very still at the counter. So my expectation, because this uses millimeter wave, is that it would be able to still recognize that someone is there even if being very still, like a typical presence sensor. That is not what I experienced. This definitely acts more like a standard PIR type motion sensor in most ways. That said, it is very accurate and responsive. The automation worked great and turned the lights on and off just as I'd expect. Just not great if you're being very still. It won't detect you and your lights will go off. Now, another big difference between PIR and millimeter wave is that millimeter wave has the ability to detect motion even through walls. So this could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on your particular setup and needs. So you could even tuck one of these behind a cabinet or something like that out of the way, and it'll still work for your automations, which is pretty cool. Now, I've had one set up since January and the battery is currently around 70% or so. The other one that I set up more recently, maybe for the past month or so, no longer than a month, still shows 100% battery. So far, the battery life seems promising, especially for a millimeter wave sensor. It's too early to call it for 3 years, but even after months of use, it still seems to be holding pretty strong so far. All right, so pros and cons of the first millimeter wave sensor that we have. And it is very fast and responsive. It's been very reliable in that sense. It's affordable at only $29.99. I really love the buttons on it that allow you to easily adjust the sensitivity. This was very helpful when dialing in my kitchen light automation and getting it just right. It is a Zigbee sensor, which personally I like. I think that's good as long as you have a Zigbee hub that you can use. I think Zigbee is usually good for battery life, so that probably helps this battery last a lot longer, which does seem to be holding up pretty good so far. But at the same time, that does mean you need to have a Zigbee hub in your house, so that might be a downside for a lot of you. It's also great that it does support Matter through the third reality Matter bridge if you decide to go that route. And if you do, nice thing is you can add other third reality and other Zigbee products to this Matter bridge and get those over into HomeKit or Apple Home if that's something you want to do. The biggest downside is that it does not maintain presence as I was hoping. And that might be my fault in having, unfair expectations just because this is a millimeter wave sensor. Every other millimeter wave sensor that I've seen is basically a presence sensor. So it does really good at detecting motion even when somebody's being really still. So I thought just because this used millimeter wave, that would be the case here, but it's not. It definitely acts as a motion sensor. And to be fair, Third Reality does clearly list this as a motion sensor and not a presence sensor on their website. So again, could be my own fault there for having unfair expectations. And again, also keep in mind that because this is in fact a millimeter wave sensor, it can detect motion through walls. Again, that could be good or bad depending on your needs. Since the sensor can detect through walls, placement does really matter for something like this. You don't want it triggering your lights from a hallway when it's meant for your kitchen, for example. But again, you do have those sensitivity adjustments on there, so you can really dial it in if you like. It is also rather bulky compared to a lot of other motion sensors, so something to keep in mind. And lastly, it does require that Zigbee bridge, which might be a downside if you don't already have one or don't intend on getting one. So to sum it up, this is a very good motion sensor if you can live with the look of it and the size of it. Since it does use mmWave, you can likely hide it behind a cabinet or something like that, which is nice, but this is not a presence sensor. So if you need a true presence sensor, you'll probably want to look elsewhere. But again, this is the first and the only wireless mmWave sensor that I've seen so far. Other mmWave sensors out there that are true presence sensors, like the Everything Presence Lite or the Aqara FP1E, the FP2. These are all great presence sensors, but they all require being plugged into an outlet. Now, Aqara does have plans to release a presence sensor this year that is wireless, but as of the time of this recording, it's not available yet. And until then, or until someone else does it, I guess we'll just have to continue finding outlets for our presence sensors. But if you need a solid wireless motion sensor that does use mmWave technology, then this Third Reality motion sensor R1 is a great option. If you're looking for a true mmWave presence sensor with some really advanced capabilities, you can check out my video on the Aqara FP2 right over here. If you found this video helpful, I appreciate a thumbs up. Subscribe for new smart home videos and live streams right here every week. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.